She didn't drop that tray.
I can handle myself. Is something wrong?
Maybe. Your ventilation system acting up tonight?
What did you smell?
Oil running too hot. Airflow feels weak. Where's your rear exit?
Past the prep area. I think it's clear.
Thinking isn't the same as knowing.
Then I'm checking it. He's in the back prep area.
Show me where. From here.
The back door is past those shelves.
Stay here. Keep this exit moving.
She didn't drop that tray. Darius Cole's voice was calm enough that half the dining room almost missed it, but Claire Bennett did not. She stood beside table 14 with iced tea spreading across the polished floor, a silver tray tilted against her hip, and 3 customers staring at her as though the accident had been entirely hers. 5 seconds earlier, a man backing away from his chair had bumped directly into her. Darius had seen everything from a booth near the window, where his 8-year-old daughter, Maya, was carefully dividing a grilled cheese sandwich into 4 perfectly equal pieces. It was Friday night at Bennett's Table, the kind of neighborhood restaurant where families filled the booths and servers moved quickly beneath warm pendant lights. Darius had come straight from an HVAC service call. He wanted dinner, 40 quiet minutes with his daughter, and nothing complicated. Then Eric Lawson appeared. The general manager crossed the dining room with the practiced irritation of a man who considered every problem somebody else's failure. "Claire again," he said. Claire's face tightened. "The customer backed into me." Eric barely looked at the man beside the chair. "Get this cleaned up. We cannot keep replacing glassware because you are careless." That was when Darius spoke. Eric turned. "Excuse me." Darius remained seated. She didn't drop it. He backed into her. Maya stopped chewing. Claire looked toward Darius for the first time. His workday still seemed to follow him into the restaurant. The tired posture, the quiet attention, the habit of noticing things other people ignored. Eric glanced at him, then at the booth, making a quick calculation about how much authority a customer should be allowed to borrow. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but this is an employee matter." "I understand. Then let us handle it." Darius nodded once. No argument. No performance. Claire should have felt grateful. Instead, embarrassment arrived first. She had spent 2 weeks working these tables because she wanted to understand what was happening inside the restaurant without employees changing their behavior around the owner. Only Eric knew who she really was. Everyone else believed she was simply another waitress trying to survive the dinner rush. Now a stranger was defending her in front of the room, and part of her resented needing it. "I can handle myself," she told Darius. His eyes met hers. "I never said you couldn't." Something about the answer made her pause. There was no flirtation in it. No wounded pride. He simply returned his attention to Maya. "Why did you say something?" Maya whispered. "Because I saw what happened." "But she didn't ask you." Darius reached for his coffee. Truth doesn't always wait for an invitation. Claire heard that. She pretended not to. Eric called for a busser and walked away. Claire crouched to gather napkins from the floor, but Darius suddenly looked toward the kitchen. His expression changed. Barely. He lifted his head and breathed in once. Maya recognized the look. "What is it, Dad?" Darius did not answer immediately. Years of HVAC work had taught him that buildings had ordinary smells. Hot metal, dust, cooking oil, old filters, damp insulation. This was different. Heat carried through the air from behind the swinging kitchen doors, mixed with the sharp odor of oil pushed beyond where it should be. He glanced toward a ceiling vent. The airflow was weak. Then he noticed a young kitchen employee hurry to a wall panel, silence a blinking warning, and return to work. Darius stood. Claire straightened. "Is something wrong?" she asked. He looked at her, then toward the kitchen. "Maybe." Eric noticed him standing and returned immediately. "Sir, I already asked you not to interfere." Darius kept his voice low. "Your ventilation system acting up tonight?" Eric's expression cooled. "Sit down and enjoy your dinner." Claire watched Darius. 10 minutes ago, she had placed him in a category without realizing it. Tired working father, well-meaning stranger, perhaps too eager to involve himself. Now she noticed something she had missed. He was not looking for attention. He was listening, watching, measuring. Darius turned toward Maya. "Sweetheart, put your jacket on." Maya obeyed without asking why. Claire looked toward the kitchen doors again. For the first time that evening, she wondered whether the stranger she had dismissed had noticed something everyone inside her restaurant had learned not to see. Eric stepped between Darius and the kitchen doors as if the real problem had just stood up from booth 12. "Take your daughter and leave," he said quietly. The words were controlled, almost polite, but Claire heard the warning beneath them. Darius looked at him for a moment, then reached for his wallet. "That is fine." Eric seemed almost disappointed that there would be no argument. "I will have someone bring your check." "Daddy," Maya whispered, pulling on her jacket. "Are we in trouble?" Darius shook his head. "No, sweetheart." Claire remained near the spilled drinks, watching him place enough cash on the table to cover dinner and a generous tip. He had defended her, been dismissed for doing it, and was still leaving money for the people who worked there. She could not decide whether that made him stubborn or unusually decent. Maya slid from the booth and leaned closer to her father. "Why are you helping her if she does not want you to?" The question was quiet. Claire still heard it. Darius helped Maya zip her jacket. "Because whether she likes me has nothing to do with what happened." Claire lowered her eyes. Something uncomfortable moved through her, not shame exactly, but recognition. She had spent 2 weeks pretending to have less power, so she could discover how people behaved when they believed she had none. Yet when Darius had spoken for her, she had immediately wondered what he wanted. Maybe she had learned that suspicion somewhere above the restaurant, in offices where every favor carried an invoice. "Sir," Claire said. Darius turned. For a second, she considered apologizing. Eric was still watching. Instead, she asked, "What did you smell?" Darius glanced toward the swinging doors. "Oil running too hot. Airflow feels weak out here too." Eric gave a short laugh. "He fixes air conditioners, Claire. He is not inspecting my kitchen." "My kitchen?" Claire noticed the phrase. Technically, Eric managed Bennett's table. Legally, almost everything around them belonged to her. But tonight, wearing an apron and carrying a tray, she had discovered how quickly ownership became meaningless when the people below management were afraid to speak. "Has the ventilation been checked recently?" she asked. Eric's expression shifted. "Why are you asking me that?" Because he noticed something. Eric stared at her. "Go finish table 9. Claire did not move immediately. Darius saw the exchange and understood there was more tension here than a broken glass. He did not know why. He only knew the young woman who had told him she could handle herself suddenly looked like someone measuring how much truth her workplace allowed. Then a brief electronic alarm sounded from the kitchen. One sharp tone. Another. A cook appeared near the doorway, looked toward Eric, then reached for the wall panel. The sound stopped. Darius's face tightened. Was that the hood system? Eric stepped toward him. "You need to leave now." Darius did not challenge him. Instead, he looked at Claire. "Where is your rear exit?" "Past the prep area." "Clear." Claire hesitated. Earlier that evening, she had seen a delivery stacked beside the back corridor. Boxes. Cooking supplies. Maybe 12 feet from the exit. At the time, she had assumed someone would move them. "I think so." Darius held her gaze. Thinking is not the same as knowing. Claire felt the sting of it because he was right. Maya tugged gently on his hand. "Dad." He looked down immediately, his expression softening. "We are leaving." Then he crouched so they were eye level. "If I tell you to walk outside with someone, what do you do?" "I go outside. And I do not come back unless you come get me." "Good." Claire watched them, and another assumption quietly broke apart. Darius was not trying to prove he was fearless. He was preparing his daughter because he understood fear deserved a plan. From behind the kitchen doors came the clatter of metal, followed by someone calling for Eric. This time Eric moved quickly. Claire followed 2 steps, then stopped when a faint ribbon of gray haze appeared above the doorway and vanished into the weak ceiling airflow. Darius saw it too. The dining room had not noticed yet. Families were still eating. A birthday candle still burned at a corner table. "Hey!" Server laughed near the beverage station. Everything looked normal because danger had not become loud enough to demand attention. Darius took Maya's hand and moved toward the front entrance. Claire watched him go, then looked back toward the kitchen. For the first time since she had begun working secretly inside the restaurant her father left her, she was no longer wondering whether Darius had crossed a line. She was wondering how many warnings everyone else had already crossed. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hidden Father Stories. Every day, we bring you touching stories, emotional love stories, and unforgettable journeys inspired by the moments that change people's lives forever. The front door was less than 30 feet away when the alarm sounded again. This time it did not stop after 2 tones. Conversations broke apart across the dining room. Chairs scraped against the floor. Darius tightened his hand around Maya's and kept walking. "Stay with me." Behind him, Claire pushed through the kitchen doors and immediately felt the difference in the air. Heat pressed against her face. A pale layer of smoke had gathered above the cooking line, while 2 employees stood uncertainly near the prep station. Eric was telling everyone to remain calm, but his voice carried the sharpness of someone trying to control appearances instead of the problem. "Where is Tyler?" Claire asked. Rosa looked around. He took boxes toward the back. Claire's stomach tightened. Tyler was 17, a busser working weekends after school. She turned toward the prep corridor. Darius heard the name from halfway across the dining room. He stopped. Maya looked up. "Dad." He crouched beside her. "Remember what we just talked about?" She nodded. Darius pointed toward Rosa, who was helping customers through the front entrance. "Go with Miss Rosa. Stay outside." Maya searched his face. "Are you coming?" "Yes." She hesitated only a second before moving toward Rosa. Claire was already heading for the kitchen when Darius caught up. "Where is the kid?" "Back prep area." "Show me from here." Claire pointed beyond the swinging doors, past the storage shelves, then left. She started forward. Darius raised one hand. "You stay where you can guide people out." Her expression hardened. "He works for me." Darius caught the strange wording, but had no time to question it. "Then help him by keeping this exit moving." Claire stared at him. Hours earlier, she would have heard command in his voice and resisted it. Now she heard something else. Clarity. She turned toward the dining room. "Everyone outside. Leave your things. Use the front entrance." Darius moved only as far as the prep corridor, where visibility remained clear. Tyler appeared almost immediately from behind a shelving unit, carrying nothing, his face pale with confusion. "The back door will not open," he said. "Boxes are against it." Darius looked toward the corridor. Several delivery cartons had shifted into the narrow space near the exit. Nothing dramatic. Nothing impossible. Just enough careless storage to make the door difficult to use when seconds mattered. "Do not worry about the boxes," Darius said. "Front exit. Go." Tyler moved toward Claire. Then a kitchen employee called that the flare near the cooking line had been contained with the proper extinguisher. The smoke remained, but the immediate danger was easing. Darius did not move deeper into the kitchen. He stayed where he was useful and let trained staff handle the equipment. Outside, customers gathered beneath the restaurant's red awning while someone called the fire department. Maya stood beside Rosa, exactly where her father had told her to remain. Eric emerged moments later and saw Darius coming through the dining room. His face changed. "What were you doing back there?" "Making sure your busser found the front exit." "You entered an employee-only area after I told you to leave." Claire stepped between them. "Eric, stop." He turned toward her. "Security needs his information." "For what?" "Interfering with emergency procedures." Darius looked at Eric, then toward Tyler, who was standing safely beside Rosa. He could have raised his voice. He could have reminded everyone who had noticed the warning first. Instead, he walked outside and put a hand on Maya's shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded. "I did what you said." "I know." Claire watched from the doorway. That quiet exchange unsettled her more than any argument could have. Darius had been dismissed, ordered out, and now blamed after helping someone. Yet his first concern was whether his daughter had felt safe. A security guard approached and asked Darius to remain available until the fire department arrived. He agreed without complaint. Rosa moved beside Claire and spoke so softly Eric could not hear. "That back exit has been blocked before." Claire turned. "What?" Rosa looked toward the boxes visible beyond the kitchen. "We reported it." "To whom?" Rosa's eyes shifted toward Eric. "More than once." Claire went still. The restaurant suddenly looked different to her. Not as an inheritance. Not as a business with disappointing reviews. As a place where people had learned that warnings disappeared upward. Across the sidewalk, Darius met her eyes. He did not know who she really was. He did not know that every table, every light, Every ignored complaint ultimately carried her family name. But Claire knew, and for the first time, the secret that had given her freedom to observe the restaurant began to feel less like an advantage and more like a responsibility. The first fire engine arrived 7 minutes later, its lights washing the restaurant windows in red and white, while families waited beneath the awning and along the sidewalk. Darius stood beside Maya with one hand resting lightly on her shoulder. He had answered every question security asked. He had not complained when Eric described him as an interfering customer. He had not corrected the manager in front of everyone. Claire noticed all of it. A fire inspector approached Darius after speaking with the kitchen staff. "You went into the prep corridor?" Darius nodded, only far enough to confirm the busser was coming out. "I did not approach the cooking line." "Why did you go back?" Darius looked toward Tyler, who stood beside Rosa wrapped in a restaurant jacket against the cool night air. "Because somebody said a kid was still back there." The inspector glanced at Maya. "And you left your own daughter outside? With an adult I trusted." Maya looked up. "Dad told me exactly where to wait." The inspector nodded and wrote something down. Eric stepped closer. "For the record, I had already instructed this gentleman to leave before he entered a restricted area." Claire felt something inside her tighten. Darius simply said, "That is true." Eric seemed surprised. "You admit it? You told me to leave. Then I heard someone was missing." No defensiveness. No attempt to make Eric smaller. Just the sequence of events. Claire had spent years around executives who could turn one mistake into 10 explanations. Darius needed only the truth. The inspector looked toward the rear of the building. "We also need to discuss that exit." Eric's jaw tightened. Rosa glanced at Claire. Claire stepped closer to her. "You said it had been blocked before." Rosa hesitated. "Claire, forget I said anything." "Why?" Rosa lowered her voice. "Because people who complain here stop getting good shifts." Claire stared at her. "Who told you that?" Rosa gave a tired smile. "Nobody has to tell you after you watch it happen." Across the sidewalk, Maya was asking her father whether Tyler had parents waiting for him. Darius nodded toward a woman hurrying from the parking lot and pulling Tyler into a relieved embrace. Maya smiled. "Good." Darius looked down at her. "Yeah, good." Claire watched that small moment and felt her earlier irritation become harder to defend. She had thought Darius wanted to be noticed. Yet he was not watching the firefighters, security, or the customers whispering about him. He was watching a mother find her son. Eric approached Claire. "When we reopen, I need you back on the floor. We lost enough revenue tonight." She turned slowly. "When we reopen?" The flare was contained. "We clean up and move on." "What about the rear exit?" His eyes sharpened. "You are a server, Claire. Let management handle management." The sentence landed differently now. For 2 weeks, being treated as powerless had been useful. Tonight it became instructive. "And the ventilation warning?" she asked. "Equipment acts up." The employee reset it. "Because it has been temperamental." "How long?" Eric stared at her. "Why are you suddenly interrogating me?" Before she answered, the fire inspector called Eric toward the kitchen. He left with visible irritation. Rosa moved closer. There were complaints about the hood system too. Claire turned. "Written complaints?" Rosa nodded. "At least 2. Maybe 3. Do you have copies?" "I might." Claire looked through the glass doors at the restaurant her father had spent 30 years building. Warm lights still glowed above abandoned plates. From outside, Bennett's table looked almost unchanged. That frightened her more than the smoke had. Darius began guiding Maya toward the parking lot. Claire hurried after them. "Darius." He stopped, surprised she remembered his name from the security questions. "I owe you an apology." Maya looked between them. Claire continued. "You noticed something, and I assumed you were trying to involve yourself where you did not belong." Darius considered her words. "You were having a rough night." It was not absolution. It was kindness without humiliation. Claire looked at Maya. "Your dad stayed very calm." Maya smiled. "He says being loud does not make you more right." Darius sighed softly. "She remembers everything inconvenient." Claire laughed before she could stop herself. It was the first honest laugh she had managed all evening. Then Rosa appeared at the doorway holding a folded envelope. She caught Claire's eye and subtly raised it. Claire understood. Complaints. Evidence. Darius followed her gaze, but asked nothing. He opened the passenger door for Maya. Claire watched them prepare to leave and realized the stranger she had initially reduced to his work clothes had done something far more unsettling than help during an emergency. He had shown her what dignity looked like when nobody powerful was expected to reward it. Claire waited until Eric disappeared through the kitchen doors before crossing the parking lot toward Darius's pickup. Maya was already buckled into the passenger side back seat, her forehead resting against the window, but Darius had not started the engine. He was looking at the restaurant through the windshield as firefighters moved equipment toward the rear entrance. Claire stopped beside his open window. "One more minute." Darius turned toward her. "Sure." She held a white envelope in both hands. Rose's folded safety complaints were tucked securely inside her apron pocket. This envelope was different. "I want you to take this." Darius looked at it, but did not reach for it. "What is it?" "A thank you." "You already thanked me." Claire hesitated. "There is money inside." His expression changed almost imperceptibly. Not offended, just certain. "No." Claire blinked. "You do not even know how much. That is why saying no is easy." She lowered her voice. "You came back when you did not have to. You helped Tyler. You noticed the ventilation problem before anyone else took it seriously. Then make sure somebody takes it seriously now." Claire stared at him. "I am trying to do something decent." "Then just say thank you." The sentence landed harder than she expected. In her world, gratitude usually arrived through bonuses, gifts, upgraded reservations, private cars, favors returned later. Money made appreciation measurable. Darius was refusing the measurement. Maya lowered the window a few inches. "Dad says people make gifts weird when they think gifts means somebody owes them something." Darius closed his eyes briefly. "Maya, what? You said that." Claire smiled despite herself. She really does remember everything. Unfortunately, Claire slipped the envelope back into her apron. "Thank you, Darius." He nodded. "You are welcome." Nothing else. No expectation hidden behind his eyes. No question about where she lived, what she earned, or why Eric sometimes watched her more carefully than the other servers. He still believed she was simply a waitress. Claire realized that mattered. His kindness had been offered to the version of her with no visible influence at all. Behind them, Eric's voice carried from the restaurant entrance. "Claire, we need to finish incident reports." Darius glanced toward him. "You should probably go." Claire did not move. "Do you always let people talk to you like that?" The question escaped before she could soften it. Darius looked back at her. "Like what?" "Like Eric did." He rested one hand on the steering wheel. "I know who I am." Before somebody else opens their mouth. Makes things simpler. Claire went still. She had spent years building herself around the opposite principle. Reputation, position, control. Her father's name above the entrance. Every room reminding people who she was before she spoke. Darius seemed to carry his worth somewhere no one else could reach. Maya yawned. Darius looked back at her immediately. "Long day." "Very." 5 minutes, and we are home." Claire stepped away from the truck. "Good night, Maya." "Good night, Miss Claire." Darius started the engine, then paused. "Check that rear exit before you reopen." Claire nodded. "I will." "And the hood system." "That too." His pickup rolled toward the street. Claire watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then Rosa approached quietly from behind. "You try to pay him?" Claire turned. "How did you know?" Rosa gave her a tired smile. "I have worked restaurants for 22 years. I know what an envelope looks like." She handed Claire the folded papers. 3 complaints. The oldest was dated 11 weeks earlier. Blocked rear exit. The second documented repeated ventilation warnings. The third requested maintenance on the kitchen suppression system. Each had been marked received. Each carried Eric Lawson's initials. None showed completed corrective action. Claire felt the night air turn colder. Why did nobody send these to corporate? Rosa looked toward the glowing Bennett's table sign. "We did what we were told. Report problems to management." Management said they were handled. "And you believed him?" Rosa's expression tightened. "No. We learned that asking twice cost people shifts." Claire looked through the restaurant windows. Eric was inside speaking confidently with the inspector, pointing toward the kitchen as though he had everything under control. For 2 weeks, Claire had believed she was secretly studying a restaurant with a morale problem. Now she understood she might be standing outside something much deeper. The emergency had been contained, but the danger had not begun tonight. Someone had seen it coming. Someone had written it down. And someone with authority had decided it was easier not to listen. Claire folded the complaints carefully and placed them beside the envelope Darius had refused. One contained money. The other contained truth. For the first time that night, she understood which one might cost more. Saturday morning arrived clear and cold, and Bennett's table remained closed behind a handwritten notice that blamed an unexpected safety inspection. At 9:15, Darius pulled into the parking lot with Maya beside him. Her school reading book was still sitting in booth 12, forgotten during the confusion the night before. 2 minutes, Darius told her. Then pancakes somewhere else. Maya smiled. The place with blueberry syrup? You negotiate too early in the morning. He opened the restaurant door and immediately noticed the silence. No plates, no conversations, no kitchen rhythm, only fluorescent lights and the soft hum of ventilation. Rosa was near the dining room, organizing silverware. Morning, Darius. Maya left a book. Booth 12. Nobody touched it. Maya hurried toward the booth. Darius followed, then stopped. Claire had just entered from the hallway near the office. But something was different. No apron, no order pad, no tray balanced against one hip. She carried the 3 safety complaints in one hand and a folder in the other. Eric walked behind her, speaking rapidly. Miss Bennett, I strongly recommend we discuss this privately before you start questioning employees. Darius looked at Claire, then at Eric, then back at Claire. The restaurant seemed to become even quieter. Maya returned holding her book against her chest. Dad, Darius barely moved. Miss Bennett. Claire met his eyes. She knew immediately that the secret was over. Eric glanced between them. You two know each other? Darius gave a small nod. We met last night. Eric's expression tightened. Claire stepped closer. Darius, I was going to explain. He looked around the dining room, then toward the Bennett's table sign painted across the interior glass. You own this place. It was not really a question. Yes. Maya looked at Claire with open surprise. The whole restaurant. Claire almost smiled. Technically, yes. Maya considered this for a moment. That is a lot of tables. Darius rested a hand gently on his daughter's shoulder. Claire waited for something to change in his face. Deference, anger, embarrassment over the envelope she had offered him. Something. Nothing did. So that is why you were asking questions, he said. Partly. Claire lowered her voice. My father built this restaurant. I inherited it after he died. The numbers looked fine, but employee turnover kept rising and customer complaints kept changing in ways that did not make sense. I wanted to see what happened when nobody thought the owner was watching. Darius glanced toward Eric. Looks like you saw it. Eric stepped forward. What she saw was an unusually difficult night, complicated by a customer entering restricted areas. Claire turned toward him. 3 written safety complaints were filed before last night. Eric went still. Darius recognized the folded papers in her hand. The danger he had noticed had existed long before he walked through the door. Those issues were being handled, Eric said. Then show me the completed maintenance records. Silence. Claire looked back at Darius. Are you angry that I did not tell you who I was? He thought about it. No. That answer surprised her more than anger would have. Why not? Your job title is not my business. He paused. What you do with it is. Claire absorbed the words quietly. Last night, he had defended a waitress. This morning, he stood in front of the owner and spoke to her in exactly the same tone. No extra warmth because she had money. No sudden caution because she could influence people. No request for anything. The class difference between them had become visible, yet somehow Darius had made it feel less important than what Claire chose to do next. Eric folded his arms. Miss Bennett, perhaps we should continue without outsiders present. Darius nodded. He is right about one thing. This is your restaurant. He turned toward Maya. Got your book? Yes. They started toward the door. Claire followed. Wait. I may need a statement about what you saw. Darius stopped. I will tell the truth. Relief crossed her face. Then he added, but I am not fighting your company war for you. Claire's expression changed. I am not asking you to. Good. He opened the door for Maya. Because fixing what happens in here belongs to the person who owns all those tables. Maya looked at Claire and gave a small wave before stepping outside. Claire stood in the doorway watching them cross the parking lot. Behind her were 3 ignored complaints, a manager suddenly nervous about records, and a restaurant carrying her family name. Ahead of her walked the man who had treated her with more respect when he thought she owned nothing than many people had shown her knowing she owned everything. By noon, Claire had turned Eric's office into a room full of questions. Maintenance invoices covered the desk. Employee schedules lay beside safety logs. Rosa sat across from her with 2 other servers, each speaking carefully at first, as though years of caution could not disappear simply because the owner had finally started listening. The rear exit was not the only problem, Rosa said. People complained about the hood warnings, broken equipment, even the way tips were adjusted. Claire looked up. Adjusted how? A younger server named Hannah pushed a pay statement across the desk. Service adjustments. That is what Eric called them. Claire studied the numbers. Did anyone explain what they were for? Hannah shook her head. We learned not to ask too many questions. Claire felt the same cold recognition she had experienced outside the restaurant the night before. She had come here expecting to uncover poor morale. Instead, every drawer seemed to contain another reason people had stopped trusting management. Eric remained outside the office with the restaurant's accountant, insisting the discrepancies were normal operating decisions. Claire no longer accepted normal as an explanation. She requested 18 months of tip records, maintenance work orders, employee complaints, and scheduling changes. By 3, a pattern had begun to emerge. Safety concerns were marked resolved without supporting invoices. Employees who complained often received fewer weekend shifts. Tip deductions appeared under vague descriptions that nobody could clearly explain. Claire leaned back and stared through the office window at the empty dining room. Her name was not printed on those records. Her signature was not beside Eric's initials. Yet the restaurant belonged to her. Distance did not erase responsibility. Her phone buzzed with a message from Darius. I remembered one more thing. The warning panel was reset before the second alarm. I can put it in writing if that helps. Claire read the message twice. He had not asked whether she needed him. He had simply remembered a fact and offered it. She replied with a time and thanked him. Darius arrived near 5 after finishing a service call, Maya walking beside him with a small backpack. He stopped when he saw Claire waiting near the front booth instead of inside the office. You found something, he said. Several things. She showed him a blank witness form, not the financial records. I only need what you personally saw. Darius nodded. Good. Claire noticed the approval in that single word. She had expected him to want every detail after learning who she was. He did not. He sat down and described the odor, the weak airflow, the employee resetting the warning, Tyler's location, and the obstructed rear exit. No exaggeration. No claim that he had saved everyone. When Claire asked whether he believed the restaurant had been unsafe, he paused. I can tell you what I observed. An inspector should tell you what it means. Claire looked at him. You are very careful about where your authority ends. Everybody should be. The words stayed between them. Maya sat nearby drawing on the back of an unused kids' menu. She looked toward Claire. Are you still a waitress? Claire smiled faintly. Not exactly. Did you like it? Claire considered the question. I learned from it. Maya nodded as if that answer was sufficient. Eric entered the dining room before Claire could continue. This needs to stop. His voice was controlled, but his face was tense. We have an insurance carrier asking questions, employees talking about payroll, and now you are bringing customers into an internal investigation. Darius put down the pen. Claire stood. He witnessed the incident. He interfered. With it, Darius remained seated. Eric looked at him. You seem very interested in this restaurant for someone who came here for dinner. Darius met his eyes. I am interested in telling the truth about what I saw. And after that, I go home. Eric gave a humorless smile. People usually want something. Darius glanced toward Maya. Maybe that is the problem. You stopped believing anyone could do the right thing without getting paid for it. Claire watched Eric's expression tighten. Then she watched Darius return to the witness form as calmly as if nothing important had been said. That difference mattered. Eric used authority to make people smaller. Darius used certainty to remain himself. Claire had once mistaken those things for the same kind of strength. She no longer did. She collected the completed statement. Thank you. Darius stood. That is all you needed? For now. He nodded. Then the rest belongs to you. Claire looked toward the office filled with records. I know. As Darius and Maya reached the door, Hannah hurried from the back, carrying another folder. Miss Bennett, she said, breathless. You asked for the original tip reports. Eric turned sharply. Hannah froze. Claire saw fear cross the young server's face. Darius saw it too. He did not step between them. He did not need to. Claire did. Give them to me, Hannah. Eric started to speak. Claire raised one hand. Not this time. Hannah crossed the room and placed the folder in Claire's hands. Inside were numbers that did not match the reports on Eric's desk. Claire looked at him. The safety failures were no longer the only thing hidden inside Bennett's table. And for the first time, Eric seemed to understand that the woman he had treated like a disposable waitress had stopped observing his system and started taking responsibility for it. Before we continue, take a quick second to subscribe to Hidden Father Stories if you haven't already. If you love powerful family dramas, surprising stories, real-life inspired journeys, and stories with meaningful life lessons, you're in the right place. Your support helps us create a brand new cinematic story every single day. Claire did not sleep much that night. By Sunday afternoon, the original tip reports had confirmed what the altered records only suggested. Money had been withheld under vague service adjustments, complaints had disappeared into management files, and maintenance requests had been repeatedly postponed. Yet one question bothered Claire more than the numbers. Why had so many people remained silent? She thought of Darius telling her that everybody should know where their authority ended. She was beginning to understand the opposite problem. People also needed to know when their responsibility began. On Monday evening, Claire drove across town with Darius's witness statement in a folder beside her. She had his address only because the incident report required it. She nearly turned around twice. Showing up at his home felt different from summoning him to her restaurant. Here, her ownership meant nothing. Darius opened the apartment door wearing the same quiet surprise he seemed to reserve for situations he had not invited. Claire, I should have called. Probably. She almost smiled. Can I have 5 minutes? He glanced toward the kitchen. Maya was doing homework at a small table beneath a warm light. 5 minutes. Claire entered. The apartment was modest and carefully kept. Work gloves rested beside Darius's keys. A lunch container dried near the sink. Nothing in the room asked for sympathy. That struck her immediately. I wanted to ask about your statement, Claire said. Something unclear? No, that is actually the problem. It is very clear. Darius waited. Why did you go back for Tyler after Maya was already outside? He looked toward his daughter before answering. Because another father might have been waiting for that kid. Claire said nothing. The sentence was not dramatic. Darius did not deliver it like one. That made it harder to forget. Maya looked up from her worksheet. Miss Claire, do you want a cookie? You do your homework, Darius said. I am doing both. Maya broke a cookie in half and held out one piece. Claire accepted it. Thank you. Maya studied the uneven pieces. You got the broken side. I think both sides are broken. Maya smiled. Dad says broken. Does not mean useless. Darius rubbed a hand over his face. I have apparently said too many things around this child. Claire laughed softly, then looked at the half cookie in her hand. Her father had once told her Bennett's table was not really about food. It was about making people feel they had a place to sit. Somewhere after inheriting it, Claire had reduced that idea to revenue reports and quarterly margins. She had believed distance made her objective. Instead, distance had made other people's problems easier not to see. There is more than a safety issue, she said. Tip records were altered. Employees who complained lost shifts. I think Eric built a system where silence was rewarded. Darius leaned against the counter. What are you going to do? I do not know yet. She expected disappointment. He only nodded. That is honest. Claire looked at him. I could fire him tomorrow. You could. You do not think I should? I think firing one person and fixing a system are two different jobs. The words settled heavily. Claire had come hoping he would make the decision simple. Instead, he had returned it to her. You really are not going to tell me what to do. It is your restaurant. You keep reminding me. You kept it secret for 2 weeks. Maybe you need reminding. Claire gave him a look, and the corner of his mouth moved slightly. For the first time, the difference between them did not feel like a wall. It felt like something they could acknowledge without letting it decide whose voice mattered. Then Darius's phone rang. His expression changed as he listened. When he asked. Maya stopped writing. Claire watched him straighten. No, I understand. I will be there tomorrow. He ended the call. Everything okay? Claire asked. Darius looked toward Maya before answering. My supervisor says someone sent the company a complaint about me entering a restricted workplace during an emergency. They want to meet tomorrow morning. Claire's face went still. Eric, we do not know that. I do. Darius shook his head. Knowing and proving are different. Claire reached immediately for her phone. I can have our attorney call your company tonight. No. She stopped. Darius, this could affect your job. I know. Then let me help. His voice remained calm. Help me by telling the truth when somebody asks you. Do not use your power to make the problem disappear. Claire slowly lowered the phone. She understood what he was asking now. Respect was not rescuing someone before listening to how they wanted to stand. Maya quietly slid the other half of her cookie toward her father. Darius took it and smiled. Claire watched them and realized that the man who had protected people inside her restaurant was now asking her for something far harder than protection. He was asking her to trust dignity more than influence. At 8:40 the next morning, Darius sat across from his supervisor in a small office above the HVAC company warehouse. His work gloves rested beside him on the desk. The supervisor, Frank Miller, looked uncomfortable rather than angry. I have known you 6 years, Darius. That is why I am asking before I decide anything. He turned a computer monitor around. A security clip showed Darius entering the restaurant's employee corridor. It ended before Tyler came out. This was sent with a complaint saying you ignored management instructions and entered a restricted area during an emergency. Darius watched the 20-second clip twice. There is more footage. Probably. This is what they sent. Then you should ask for all of it. Frank studied him. You are not going to explain? I already gave the restaurant owner a statement. I will tell you the same thing. A young employee was believed to be in the back. I went far enough to confirm he was coming out. I did not approach the cooking line. Frank leaned back. Until I verify that, I need you away from customer-facing calls. Darius nodded. The decision hurt. He had rent, groceries, Maya's school expenses, and no second income waiting at home. But he did not bargain with the truth to make it easier. Across town, Claire received the same video from a local neighborhood account. The caption called Darius a customer who had disrupted an emergency response. Comments multiplied beneath it. Some praised him. Others decided 20 seconds were enough to know his character. Claire's first instinct was immediate and familiar. Call counsel. Release every camera angle. Name Eric. Control the story before someone else did. Her hand was already on the phone when she remembered Darius in his kitchen. Do not use your power to make the problem disappear. Claire set the phone down. Then she did something harder. She called Darius. I saw the video. So did my boss. What happened? Temporary reassignment until they review it. Claire closed her eyes. I can fix this today. No. You could lose income because somebody edited what happened. Then provide the complete footage when my company asks. That could take days. Then it takes days. Claire stood and walked toward the restaurant window. Why are you making this difficult? Silence followed. When Darius answered, his voice was steady. Because you are still trying to rescue me without asking what I need. Claire stopped. He continued. Eric used authority to decide what everybody else's truth was worth. Do not use yours the same way just because you mean well. The words stung because they were accurate. Her transformation had begun with learning not to judge Darius. Apparently, it had another step. Learning that respect meant allowing him to remain the author of his own choices. What do you need? She asked. Preserve every recording. Tell the truth. Let the process see the whole thing. Claire looked at the security system on her screen. I can do that. After the call, she requested the complete footage be copied and secured. Then she discovered something else. The original recording showed Eric watching Tyler move toward the rear corridor minutes before the alarm. It also showed Darius sending Maya toward the front exit before he went back. The edited clip had removed both details. Claire called Rosa into the office. Who had access to the footage? Rosa hesitated. Management. Eric. Assistant managers. Claire looked toward the empty manager's desk. Eric had called in sick that morning. By noon, Claire received another message, this one from the independent inspector scheduled to review the kitchen. A preliminary examination of the maintenance history suggested. The suppression system had missed a recommended service interval. The emergency from Friday had been small. The pattern behind it was not. Claire understood then that the rescue motif had changed. Darius had already helped people out of immediate danger. Now the question was whether she could prevent another person from ever needing to do the same. That afternoon, Darius picked Maya up from school earlier than usual because his schedule had been cleared. She climbed into his truck and noticed immediately. Why are you not working? Something from the restaurant has to be sorted out. Are they blaming you? Darius looked at her in the rearview mirror. Somebody is telling only part of what happened. Maya frowned. That is lying. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people tell the part that helps them. She thought for a moment. Will Miss Claire tell the other part? Darius started the engine. I think she will. It was the first time he had said it with confidence. At Bennett's table, Claire stood alone beneath the warm lights and watched the complete security footage again. Friday night. Darius had trusted his daughter to follow instructions. Now he was trusting Claire to do something she had rarely been forced to do before. Not control the outcome. Not purchase a solution. Simply prove worthy of the truth someone had placed in her hands. The independent inspector arrived at Bennett's table shortly after 9 on Wednesday morning carrying a tablet, a flashlight, and the patient expression of someone who trusted equipment more than explanations. Claire met him at the front entrance. Eric had returned, but she had instructed him to remain away from the inspection unless specifically questioned. Darius arrived 10 minutes later after Frank approved time away from the warehouse to provide his witness account. He wore his established work clothes and carried no tools. Today, he was not there to fix anything. That distinction mattered to him. "Morning," Claire said. "Morning." Their exchange was simple, but something had changed. She no longer spoke to him as someone whose judgment needed verification before it deserved attention. He no longer looked at her as merely the waitress caught inside somebody else's bad management. The inspector walked them through the kitchen. Darius identified where he had smelled overheated oil and where he had seen the warning panel reset. Then he stepped back. When the inspector asked whether the weak airflow proved the ventilation system had failed, Darius shook his head. "It told me something needed checking. That is all I knew." Claire watched the inspector nod. Darius never stretched knowledge into authority. Eric had done the opposite for years. Near the rear corridor, the inspector photographed the exit and reviewed maintenance records. "This door cannot become storage space," he said. "Not occasionally. Not during deliveries. Never." Claire looked at Rosa. Rosa gave a small nod. Somebody had finally said aloud what employees had been punished for repeating. Then a technician testing the suppression control panel noticed an irregular signal. A warning tone sounded. Everyone stopped. Eric immediately stepped forward. "That happens sometimes. Reset it." Claire turned toward him. 3 days earlier, she might have accepted those words because they sounded confident. "No." Eric stared at her. "It is a test signal. Then we find out why it appeared. Claire, every hour we stay closed costs thousands of dollars." She looked through the kitchen doors toward the empty dining room. Her father had taught her to count tables, payroll, food cost, rent, and margins. Somewhere along the way, she had learned to count money faster than consequences. "Then we lose thousands." The inspector looked at her, then returned to the panel. No one reset the warning. No one rushed. The technician traced the signal and found a service issue that required attention before normal operations resumed. It was not dramatic. No smoke. No panic. That was exactly the point. Claire closed the restaurant for another day. Eric followed her into the dining room. "You are destroying this place over possibilities." Friday was a possibility until it happened. Nobody was hurt. Darius, standing several feet away, looked toward him. "That is not proof the system worked." Eric turned. "I was not speaking to you." Darius nodded. "Fair enough." He stepped back. Claire noticed what he had done. He did not need the final word. Eric did. "You sent his employer the video," Claire said. Eric's expression tightened. "I sent documentation of an incident. You sent 20 seconds. 20 accurate seconds." Accuracy without context can still be dishonest. Silence settled across the dining room. Claire placed a flash drive containing the complete footage on the table. "His employer receives this today." Eric looked at her. "So now he matters more than the restaurant." Claire glanced toward Darius. "That is the mistake you keep making. You think respecting one person must cost another person dignity." Eric said nothing. The inspector emerged from the kitchen carrying his tablet. The suppression system had missed a recommended service interval. The rear exit complaints were valid. The ventilation warning required documented repair before reopening. Claire listened without interrupting. Darius listened too. The danger had changed shape. Friday night, it had been heat, smoke, and a blocked door. Now it was a choice made in daylight, whether warnings would again be treated as inconveniences. Darius's phone rang. "Frank." He answered and listened quietly. The complete footage had reached the company. His customer assignments would be restored the following morning. "Thank you," Darius said, then ended the call. Claire searched his face. "You are cleared. Tomorrow morning." Relief crossed hers more visibly than his. "Good." Darius nodded toward the kitchen. "Now clear them." Claire followed his gaze. Rosa, Hannah, Tyler, and several employees waited near the service station, uncertain whether the owner's new concern would last beyond the inspection. Claire understood. Restoring one man's reputation was easier than restoring a workplace's trust. She walked toward them without a speech prepared. Darius stayed where he was. He had helped when danger demanded it. He had told the truth when blame followed. But this rescue belonged to Claire now. And for the first time, she understood that preventing people from needing to be saved was a deeper form of responsibility than arriving after something had already gone wrong. By Thursday evening, the restaurant was quiet enough that Claire could hear the refrigeration units humming behind the kitchen wall. Repairs had been completed, but she had chosen not to reopen yet. She sat alone in her father's old office with 18 months of records spread across the desk. At first, she had wanted one clean answer. Eric ignored complaints. Eric altered reports. Eric punished employees who spoke up. Remove Eric, fix the problem. But the deeper she looked, the less comfortable that answer became. She found emails from 2 years earlier, when her father's health had begun to fail and Claire had taken greater control from a distance. Revenue had been slipping. Food costs had risen. Her messages had been direct. Reduce operating expenses. Improve margins. Eliminate unnecessary service contracts. She had never written, ignore safety. She had never ordered anyone to take money from employees. But she had rewarded numbers without asking what people were sacrificing to produce them. Eric had learned exactly what reached her attention. Profit did. Complaints did not. Claire closed the laptop and stared at the framed photograph of her father beside the desk. He stood beneath the original Bennett's table sign, smiling beside cooks, servers, and dishwashers. She remembered something he used to say when she was a teenager working summers there. A restaurant is not the building. It is the people who keep coming back. Somewhere along the way, Claire had assumed he meant customers. Now she wondered whether he had meant employees too. An hour later, she found Darius finishing a service call at a small apartment complex several blocks away. He was packing tools into his truck when she approached. "You keep finding me after work," he said. "Apparently that is when I make my worst decisions." Darius closed the toolbox. "What happened?" Claire leaned against neither the truck nor him. She simply stood there, hands in her coat pockets. "I found old emails. Eric's. Mine." Darius waited. "I pushed hard on costs. I wanted better margins. I never told him to ignore maintenance, but I made it very clear what I rewarded." Her voice softened. "If I fire him, everybody will think the problem is gone." Darius looked at her. "Is it?" Claire gave a tired laugh. "I knew you would say that. Then why come ask? Because I hoped you would tell me I am being too hard on myself. Are you?" She looked away toward the apartment windows glowing against the evening. "I do not know." Darius rested his hands on the edge of the truck bed. "You did not block that exit. No. You did not reset the warning. No. You did not alter those tip records. No." Claire exhaled. "But I own the place where people became afraid to complain." Darius nodded slowly. "That sounds like the part that belongs to you. No accusation. No absolution. Just responsibility placed exactly where it fit." Claire looked at him. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make everything sound simple." "It is not simple." He glanced toward the cab, where Maya's small backpack sat beside his work jacket. "Simple would be finding one bad person and believing everybody else gets to stay innocent." Claire went quiet. That was precisely what she had wanted. Eric as villain. Claire as the owner who discovered him. Darius as the decent stranger who proved she could still recognize goodness. A neat story. Real life was refusing to cooperate. "The board wants me to protect the Bennett name," she said. "What does that mean?" "Handle Eric privately. Correct the payroll. Reopen quickly. Keep this safety issue from becoming public." Darius's expression did not change. "And what do you want?" Claire looked toward his truck. 3 days ago, I would have said the same thing. And now I keep thinking about Tyler standing near that blocked exit. Rosa hiding copies of complaints. Hannah freezing when Eric looked at her. And you sending Maya outside before you knew whether you would have to go back. Darius lowered his eyes briefly. The rescue had lasted minutes. The consequences had exposed years. Claire understood that now. "I cannot change what I did not see," she said. "No, but I can change whether people have to hide it from me again." Darius nodded once. Claire noticed he still spoke to her exactly as he had when he believed she carried trays for a living. Learning that she owned the restaurant had not made him kinder. It had not made him colder. His respect had never been attached to her position. That realization still unsettled her in the best possible way. Her phone vibrated. A message from the board chairman asked whether she had approved the private termination agreement prepared for Eric. Claire read it, then locked the screen. I think I know what I have to do. Darius picked up his toolbox. Then do not come back tomorrow asking me to make it easier. Claire smiled faintly. You really are terrible at reassurance. Maya says the same thing. Claire started toward her car, then stopped. Darius. He looked up. Thank you for not telling me I am a good person. He considered that. Good people still have work to do. Claire nodded. This time, the words did not feel like judgment. They felt like hope. Friday morning, every employee at Bennett's table received the same message from Claire. The restaurant would remain closed until noon, and everyone scheduled that week would be paid for the missed hours. At 10, Rosa, Hannah, Tyler, the kitchen staff, assistant managers, and servers gathered in the dining room. Claire stood near the center aisle without a podium. Eric sat alone at a corner table with a representative from Human Resources. Darius stood near the back, beside Maya. Claire had invited him because his statement had become part of the investigation, but she had promised herself she would not turn him into the hero of a problem that had existed before he arrived. She looked around the room. I owe all of you an explanation. Nobody moved. The safety complaints were real. They were reported. They were not properly addressed. We also found problems with tip adjustments and scheduling decisions connected to employees who raised concerns. Eric shifted in his chair. Claire, legal advised against characterizing incomplete findings as conclusions. She looked at him. Then I will characterize my own decisions. The room became still. I pushed this restaurant to reduce costs without spending enough time asking how those savings were achieved. I accepted good numbers because they were convenient. That was my failure. Rosa lowered her eyes. Hannah stared openly. Claire continued. Eric has been suspended pending completion of the investigation. But removing one manager does not repair a culture that taught people silence was safer than honesty. Darius heard his own words inside hers, but Claire did not look toward him for approval. That mattered. She was no longer borrowing his conscience. She was using her own. Claire placed several documents on a table. Employees would receive reimbursement for any improperly withheld tips once the independent payroll review was complete. Safety complaints would now go through an outside reporting system as well as internal management. Maintenance records would be reviewed monthly by an independent service company. Emergency exits would be checked at opening, shift change, and closing. No manager would control employee scheduling alone. And if someone reports a safety concern, Claire said, their hours will not disappear because speaking up became inconvenient. Rosa finally looked at her. What happens when business gets bad again? It was the question Claire needed. Not whether the new rules sounded good today, but whether they would survive pressure tomorrow. Then we solve the business problem without making employees pay for our fear. Claire paused. If I forget that, you should be able to tell someone besides me. The room remained quiet, but it was a different quiet now. Not fear. Consideration. Tyler raised his hand slightly. Are we safe to reopen? Claire looked toward the independent inspection certificate posted near the kitchen entrance. Yes. The ventilation repair is complete. The suppression system has been serviced. The rear exit has been cleared and marked as a permanent no storage zone. But if any of you see something that says otherwise, we close again until we know. Darius glanced at Maya. Friday night. He had returned because a young employee might still have been near danger. Today, nobody needed rescuing. Someone had finally built a rule that said preventing danger mattered more than pretending everything was fine. After the meeting, employees slowly returned to their stations. Eric remained seated while Human Resources collected documents. Claire did not celebrate. There was nothing triumphant about discovering how long people had been afraid inside a business carrying her family name. Darius prepared to leave. Claire approached him near the entrance. You did not have to come. You asked me to witness what happened next. And he looked around. Rosa was showing Tyler the new exit checklist. Hannah was reading the anonymous reporting instructions. Looks like something happened next. Claire smiled faintly. That is almost a compliment. Do not get used to it. Maya appeared between them holding a kid's menu. Miss Claire, are you still rich? Claire blinked. Darius closed his eyes. Maya, what? She owns the restaurant. Claire laughed softly. Yes, Maya. I still own it. Maya looked at Darius. Then why does Dad talk to her the same? Darius opened his mouth, but Claire answered first. Because your dad understood something before I did. Maya waited. Claire looked at Darius. A person should not become more important when you discover what they own. Darius held her gaze for a moment. Or less important when you think they own nothing. Claire nodded. There it was. The distance between owner and customer, wealth and work clothes, authority and ordinary life had not disappeared. It simply no longer decided who deserved respect. Rosa called Claire from the kitchen. Before turning away, Claire said, "Thank you." Darius remembered the envelope in the parking lot and the money he had refused. That is enough. Claire smiled, because this time she finally understood why. 3 months later, Bennett's table was full again, but the difference was not in the number of customers. It was in the room itself. The rear exit stood completely clear beneath a new illuminated sign. A maintenance checklist hung where every employee could see it. Tip policies were written plainly instead of hidden behind accounting language. Rosa laughed with a family near the windows. Hannah moved between tables without glancing nervously toward the manager's office. Tyler carried a stack of clean menus past the kitchen doors and paused long enough to check the exit before continuing. Nobody praised him for it. Nobody needed to. Prevention had become ordinary, which was exactly what Claire wanted. The investigation had eventually confirmed enough of the financial and management problems for Eric to leave the company. Claire never turned his departure into a public victory. She had learned that removing one person was easier than changing the conditions that had allowed people to stop speaking. She spent more time inside the restaurant now, not disguised as a waitress and not hidden in an office. She listened. Sometimes that was all she did. On a quiet Tuesday evening, the front door opened and Maya walked in first. "We got the window booth," she announced before anyone had seated them. Darius followed with a tired smile, still carrying the quiet weight of a full workday. Claire saw them from across the dining room. For a moment, she remembered the first night, the spilled drinks, Eric's accusation, the strange smell from the kitchen, Darius standing when everyone else believed nothing serious was happening. So much had changed because one person had noticed. More had changed because people finally listened. Claire picked up 2 glasses of water and carried them to the booth herself. Darius looked at the glasses, then at her. "You have people for that now." Claire set them down. "I always did." He understood. The old Claire had also possessed employees, managers, consultants, and reports. What she had lacked was the willingness to stand close enough to hear what those people were afraid to say. Maya opened her menu. "Are the fries still good?" "That was the one system we decided not to rebuild," Claire said. Maya nodded seriously. "Smart." Darius laughed. Claire sat at the edge of the booth for a moment. No one mentioned the money she had once offered him. No one mentioned the video that had briefly threatened his reputation. His employer had restored his regular assignments after reviewing the complete footage. The truth had required time, but Darius had allowed it to stand without demanding that Claire turn wealth into a weapon. She had never forgotten that lesson. Maya looked around the dining room. People smile. More here now. Claire followed her gaze. Rosa was helping an elderly customer with a takeout container. Tyler held the door for a family leaving with 2 sleepy children. Near the kitchen, a new shift manager stopped to read a maintenance note instead of walking past it. Claire looked at Darius. He took a sip of water before answering. People usually do when they feel respected. Claire lowered her eyes for a second. 3 months earlier, she might have heard that as criticism. Tonight, she heard hope. Maya's fries arrived. She immediately pushed several toward Claire. "You can have some." Claire smiled. "Are you sure? Dad says sharing only counts when you give something you actually wanted." Darius shook his head. "I need to stop talking around you." Too late. Claire took 1 fry. There was no dramatic declaration between her and Darius. No promise that their different worlds had somehow disappeared. Claire still owned the building. Darius still woke before sunrise for service calls and measured his weeks around Maya's school schedule. Their lives had not become equal by pretending their differences did not exist. Something quieter had happened. Claire had learned that authority meant responsibility before privilege. Darius had watched a powerful person admit where she had failed and choose to change without asking anyone to applaud her. And Maya had watched 2 adults discover that respect could cross a distance money could neither create nor erase. Claire looked toward the kitchen doors. Once, danger had forced Darius to notice what others ignored. Now the restaurant no longer needed a stranger to rescue it from its own silence. That was the real change. Darius had treated Claire with dignity when he believed she was a waitress with no power to reward him. After learning she owned everything around them, he had treated her exactly the same. Claire finally understood why that mattered. Respect that grows when status appears was never respect at all. Sometimes faith in people returns through something much smaller. A man who tells the truth without raising his voice. A woman willing to listen when the truth costs her something. And a child quietly making room at the table. Every story leaves us with a question. What would you have done if you were in their place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoy touching stories, inspiring life journeys, emotional family dramas, and unforgettable love stories, don't forget to like, subscribe to Hidden Father Stories, and turn on notifications. A brand new cinematic story is waiting for you tomorrow.